Hi, Chase Buckner from Profit Engines here. I want to talk to you really quickly about an issue that I think a lot of agencies, especially younger agencies, are going to face and how you can overcome it. So the challenge is when you start to build multiple landing pages for a client, you quickly realize that, man, in order to track my conversions, I need I need a form and a thank you page for every one of these landing pages, which can become a mess, especially if you're building your own pages in WordPress like we do. We take it a step further, so we have a two-step claim process, which is basically, or conversion process. So it's basically claim an offer and then book online. Pick a day and time for a consultation. So we want to track two conversions, the claim and the booking. So that involves two landing pages, and now everything becomes doubly complex. So let's take a look at this. So here we have, for example, a light therapy landing page and a hydrofacial page. And we said to ourselves, well, why can't they use the same form? So let's just make one form that we use for all landing pages, and let's make one thank you page for the claim. So when you fill out this form on either page, you end up at this page, which has, hey, next step is to go ahead and book a day and time, and then you're taken to a second thank you page here. The problem is when you're using conversion parameters, if you're sending people from different services through the same thank you pages, you're going to be triggering conversions not knowing which service the conversion is coming from. And the way to get around that is through session storage. So basically the browser has its own memory bank that you can fill up with information that remains there for the session. So as long as somebody stays within that browser tab, you can pass information through this storage. And so what you can do is put parameters on here. So let's say what we would typically do on a landing page if we're coming from an ad is that it would look something like this. We would have rel equals, let's say, Google AdWords, and now we can put and session equals, or service, let's say, equals hydrofacial. Now this information here will get stored in the session data, and when we go into Google Tag Manager, when we're setting up the tags that live on the thank you pages, we can then tell them, okay, look for service equals something. If it's hydrofacial, fire the conversion. If it's not, don't. And then we'll have another one that says if the service equals light therapy, fire the conversion. So now you're tying your conversions back to where it came from through session data. And the reason this is important for us is because this online booker goes through HighLevel. It goes through a separate piece of software where they're leaving and coming back. So they're going to go into the system and then it's going to redirect them back to our thank you page over here. So we need that data to carry across domains and come back, and the way that you can do that is through session storage. I'm going to cut to Ivan, who's our lead developer, talking about technically how this is set up. So you'll see that in a second. And if you have any questions or if you're interested in getting help on setting this up for your agency, feel free to reach out.
Okay, so the problem we had before is that because we had the same claim thank you page and the same booking page, we were actually not able to track what service triggered those conversions. But now we can do that very easily, and we don't have to create separate thank you and booking pages anymore. So how do we do this? So first, we have to, the only change on your side is that we have to create a service query string for every campaign that we're doing. So I don't know, buckhead metspa.com. So up until now we've only had like rel equals fb, but now we also have to add and service equals, I don't know, Botox. So that's the only change on your part. We have to add this service equals and something. Microneedling, Botox, whatever. Okay, so that's the first thing. So this is what you also have to give me every time you post a task for me, and that's the only thing you have to do on your end. So how was I able to do that? So let's start. So first, if the query string parameter service exists, then we will add it to the session storage variable. Session storage is something like local storage, but it actually what it does is that it saves the variable inside of the user's browser only for the session, and the session is counted as having only one tab open, like not one tab open, but if the user clicks on if X, the next session will create a new variable, so the session storage is only valid for the time of one visit in one session, but it's valid when we are surfing the pages inside of this one tab. So they're doing the same on the smartphone. So if they're going to, I don't know, if they go to the home page and they check the services, the session values will stay the same throughout this single session. Okay, so if the service parameter exists, it will add the value of that parameter. For example, service equals microneedling. It will add microneedling to the session storage variable, which is also called service. So if the service parameter doesn't exist, the service will always be set to default. So this is how I created the program. So if it's set to default, that means that the Google Ads campaign or Facebook Ads campaign didn't have the service equals query parameter. So if not, the service will be set to default inside of the session storage. The second thing we have to do is, okay, so let me show you the first step in Google Tag Manager. We have is it under triggers? No, it's under variables. Okay, so it's under variables, so I set this to service. So if the session storage service exists, add the value of that to this variable called service inside of Google Tag Manager. That's step number one. So step number two is add the value of the service from session storage to a Google Tag Manager variable, also called service. Yeah, so that's step number two. And step number three is just creating a custom trigger. So luckily, Google now allows you to create group triggers. So for example, page view, let's take a look at the trigger microneedling claim thank you. So what I did here is I created a trigger. The trigger is when the page view is $100 gift certificate, which is the claim thank you page, which is always the same, and when the service equals microneedling, which is if you remember that variable gets pulled from the session storage. So this variable will get its value from the session storage. And then the trigger, we created a custom trigger that actually is composed of two things. First, the claim thank you page needs to be the one that we set, right? The 100 gift certificate claim, and it needs to have the service variable to equal microneedling. So that's step number two, right? The trigger is the thank you page, the claim or booking, which is always the same, so you don't have to change it, and the value of the service variable has to be the name of the service, example microneedling. And then finally, once we have everything done, we create tag. Erica sends me the tag values, and the tag only triggers when this group trigger group is activated, which means the one that we already set before, and that's it. That's it. So let's see how it works. Okay, so let's say, okay, I'll show you what the session storage is showing. Memory, okay, session storage bucket. So right now, if nothing is set, for example, if we come to this page, let's say that the person that runs ads didn't put any of the session storage variables inside. Let's say we didn't have any, not session storage, query string parameters. So somebody comes like this. Let's close this. Let's say this is the URL from Google Ads. So somebody clicks this, and what's going to happen is that inside of the go to application, the service will be set. So this is like a small database that the user now, basically like a cookie. So we have the service, which is set to default. Okay, and now we don't have anything triggered, right? So let's say, okay, let's take an example of the micro needling. Thank you page. Micro needling, right? So this is, let's say this is the landing page. If there is no query string, the service will be set to default. But if there is a query string, let's say this is let's say service equals micro needling, and they come here, you will see that now the service inside of the service value is micro needling. What does that mean? So if they click on this and claim it, claim the promotion, they will go to this page. And still, the micro needling is still there because it's the same session. And because the micro needling is the value and the page is a gift certificate claim thank you page, this conversion will actually trigger, and not the default one. Default booking and default claim are not triggered. So this way we were able to solve basically everything, like micro needling. Can you see how powerful this is? So you don't have to create different pages, and we can always track them. We can even track people based on the channel, based on the source, and do different things, even display different things. So for example, we can, I don't know, if the visitor is coming from Facebook, we can set a title tag or H1 to say something like, hey Facebook visitor, this is a special promotion just for you. So let's put this again. So let's say the service is, I don't know, Botox, and the visitor is micro needling. Sorry, I didn't put the question mark. Services Botox. Now, inside of the sorry, yeah, that's because I clicked service equals Botox. Yeah, can you see this? So the service is Botox. And now, if they go to a thank you page, nothing will be triggered because the value is not default and it's not micro needling. So there are no conversion triggers. Yeah, so that's really good. So tell me what you think.